Brandon's not here, so you'll be taking charge.
Yes, ma'am.
So that means as soon as Ashley's done, it'll.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Chop, chop, and pop.
Because the corn dogs are calling,
Corn dog,
cheese
cheese
curds,
curl,
baseball.
Yeah, maybe a cold beer.
But then we're gonna of course get a storm, I suppose, right?
Well, that'd be about right, wouldn't it?
It's not close yet.
Oh. Well, let's sit down.
I bet that feels good.
It's getting here.
Busy. We're busy.
But it's.
No, you had your garage sale this week.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
Not very well.
I was afraid, because I was out and about a little bit. I wasn't going to garage sales, but it didn't look like past years.
No, it wasn't. I think the weather had a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I sold some stuff, but I wanted to sell it in the garage, and I couldn't.
It always works that way.
You literally had a garage sale?
What's that?
You literally had a garage
I
sale?
wanted to. I needed to make more room in there.
That we're leaning towards looking at a private option.
No, they
Yeah,
did.
I
Will you take $1 for it? Yep.
I mean, unless we can get our numbers
$3?
under that
Yep.
30, but I
Don't
do
like the
know,
price?
and I.
Make an
don't-
offer.
Make an offer.
Girls decide not to have one
So
this
there's
year,
no way,
I
if the
don't
fire's
know what to get rid of.
No way.
I told Ray to give me a hand, we're gonna put it on the sidewalk at the free up. It was gone by the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double covered, any single.
Yeah, I got a couple
building there
cabinets
before you
set up there too,
Has two jobs.
but I don't want to get wet.
Mm.
Otherwise I'll have a mess.
So, we'll have to just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$3.99.
I mean, fortunately, we don't work much, so.
But don't we usually give people who like
Oh,
five
so
finger
what's
discount in
the-
our neighborhoods?
Well, I'll bring those cabinets over.
Do we do?
Just
Put a gas can on top of them and then they'll turn it on. What they do, they come and take our gas can. Yeah, somebody was in our yard again last night. We found that somebody's got an antenna in the backyard and all of the stakes are pulled out. The other day, somebody cut through and I was like, I'm asking you to get off my property before I let my dog out. What are you doing here? He's like, oh yeah, we're just cutting through, and is that a threat? And I was like, it's not a threat, it's a promise. My dog needs to go to the bathroom and I don't know how to use strangers. Please leave. And he's like, are you threatening me? I was like, well, I'm about to, so.
Trespassing.
That's what I said. He's like, this isn't
I
private
think we
property. I was
would
like,
just
oh,
be
but
the
it is.
wages that are applicable,
No.
and you'd have to come up with.
We had a few window peeping kids in our neighborhood. So I just, Bella's got a 30-foot chain, so I can put her on it without opening my door. So I hooked her in and I squeezed the door open with all the lights off, and you should have heard the screams. Because all she wants to do is kiss and jump on you. They left real fast. And I'm right behind the jail. You know, it's like, come on.
Exactly.
Dexter got mad at us because we didn't all that
Some
today.
people come there and.
So I called we bought one of those plastic pools.
Everybody has their thing.
Let them out.
Nope, they just,
Tore a big
he
hole
just
in
says
it.
they come and it's because it's like the property line.
So he's got one of those personalities.
It was like, I guarantee you,
And it doesn't matter if it's.
I had to go to Moose Lake yesterday, and about the time I was coming home and right by Mora, I looked out west and I'm like, oh shit. It was black, and I'm thinking, because when it thunders, Bella tears all the sheets off the bed and lays in them with her hair.
We'll call the meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
A move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have the consent agenda in front of us. There's any, looking for a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5, 2024 audit presentation and report.
Packed house here.
Everybody's uptown.
Okay, so I'm gonna be going through this document, which is the one on top, of the 3 that, I handed out to you. So it's actually a summarization of the other 2. So it goes through the financial results for the city for 2024, as well as, a few of our required audit communications. So we will start off with the, page there that says audit process and opinion. So this essentially depicts what we do with an audit. We get the city's records, we do a multitude of inquiries, testing, and procedures. And really, through all of those procedures, we're looking to issue an opinion. So for the city for 2024, we're issuing an unmodified or clean opinion. That's basically the best opinion you can get. It means we didn't run into any significant issues or errors or misstatements during our procedures. A few things we're just required to tell you all. Overall, the audit went smoothly. We have a positive working relationship with management. Monica and Sarah and the team here always get us everything that we need, so we didn't have any issues getting any documentation or anything like that. There weren't any unusual transactions that we noted during our review, and no unusual accounting policies or treatments. Only significant estimates are those actuarial estimates that go into calculating the PERA and fire relief net pension liability and asset. That is the same as in the past and not different than any other city basically in the state of Minnesota. And then that last box there is new this year. So we did have one change in accounting principle that related to GASB 101, compensated absences. So that relates to employee leave balances. So accrued vacation or sick leave balances. So the standard on that changed so that essentially we're accruing for all of those balances, whereas before under the old standards, we would just accrue for those balances that would be paid out upon retirement or the employee leaving. So per the new standard, the verbiage is if it's more likely than not that the hours will be used or paid out, that you should record a balance. With most cities we work with, we've just recorded the whole balance rather than kind of estimated how much is more likely than not to be used or not over the next year or so. So we have balances, liabilities in the financial statements for those leave balances this year for all of them versus just the ones that would be paid out if the person went to leave. That's the one difference this year that you'll probably the biggest difference that you'll notice in the financials if you were to compare them to last year. Other than that, not a ton of changes as far as the format or the footnotes and things like that go. This next page, controls and compliance. This is going to also look pretty similar to the past. We had just one material audit adjustments. All other audit adjustments were very minor, so that's obviously good news. We just had one correction that we made that was over that certain threshold that warrants us to call it material. Other than that, the rest were quite small. So, and then internal controls, as in the past, we note a lack of segregation of duties. The city here does segregate as much as possible, but there's still a few areas where maybe not 100% segregation is being done right now, which is very common for a city of your size, and actually cities much larger. So we do still note that finding in the city's financial statements. However, I probably mentioned this past couple of years, but we did downgrade that a couple years ago. As staff have been added the past couple of years, we were able to downgrade that to a lesser basically issue. So we have a few options, and it's basically the lowest kind of finding you can have level of finding. So now that is still noted in there, but like I said, there's controls in place that kind of mitigate some risks there, because there is some segregation here at the city. And then that second bullet point in that second column, we're just required to tell you all that we drafted the financial statement. So those big reports in front of you, we drafted those on the city's behalf. So we're also required to disclose that in our financial statements. And then that very last column, Minnesota legal compliance. So each year as part of our audit, we're required to look at basically laws or statutes that the city needs to follow. And we look at contracts, we look at quotes and bids, we look at your depositories, claims and disbursements, a multitude of things. And through all those procedures, we didn't run into any issues, so no findings related to those Minnesota legal compliance statutes. Taking a look at the numbers, we'll start off with the general fund. So the general fund had a decrease in fund balance of about $183,000 for 2024, an ending of $3,067,000. Increase in fund balance prior to those transfers out there was about $342,000. So those $525,000 transfers out were as budgeted to your street projects fund and your equipment fund. We'll look at the revenues and expenditures in a little bit more detail over the next couple pages here. Starting off with the revenues, revenues from 2023 to 2024 overall increased about $354,000. Few different categories here, maybe to make a few comments on. Property taxes increased about $113,000. Intergovernmental increased about $71,000. There was an increase in your local government aid. That's aid that comes in from the state of Minnesota. And then there was also small cities assistance aid that came through this year as well from the state of Minnesota, and that was about $36,000. Investment income increased about $77,000. Overall, just your investments doing better. Maybe a little bit more cash in there that's causing more investment income there. And then that miscellaneous column as well had a little bit of a spike there. Just some League of Minnesota Cities workers' comp reimbursements, about $29,000 that came through in 2024. On the flip side, expenditures, overall, a few, I think, areas to note here. General government increased a bit. There's just some engineering and legal costs in there related to some upcoming projects that are probably have already started, some of them in 2025, that would fall into that general government column there. Public works overall decreases in just maintenance and repairs compared to 2023, as well as snow removal falls within that category, so that obviously can fluctuate from year to year. And then that very last column, capital outlay, increased overall. Some street improvement costs for upcoming street improvement projects. Some of that engineering fell into that category there. Other than that, you'll see not a huge change in public safety or parks and rec. Any questions at all so far? All right, fund balance. So each year, as part of our audit and assessment, we took a look at your fund balance, and specifically your unassigned fund balance. That's your spendable portion of your general fund as a percent of your budget. So for 2024, that's at about just under 136%. If you were to look at this, it does look a little odd. That's kind of a downward trend there from 2020 to 2024. I think that's kind of as expected. You had a pretty healthy unassigned fund balance, that spendable portion. So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that being where it is right now at that 136%, because your target is 50 to 65%. So you're still well above and beyond that target. And then just quick cash for the general fund, that had just a very slight increase, and that's at about $3,083,800 at 12/31/24.
That's cash on hand?
Cash on hand, yep.
Okay.
And then we will take a look at the other two major governmental funds. So that's your fire service fund and your 2020 improvement bond fund. So your fire service fund had an increase in fund balance of about $88,000 and ending just under $935,000. And then your bond fund had a decrease in fund balance of about $109,000 and ending of $497,000. comparing activity from year to year for those two funds from 23 to 24, it was pretty similar. Some fluctuations in your fire revenues. Some of that, there was some special public safety aid that came through in 2023 that was just a one-time thing, so that fluctuated. Other than that, your charges for services on the flip side increased a bit, which as expected, because that's based on property values. Most of that as expected, as you would think, things that would fluctuate from those 2 years. And then cash for those couple of funds, and actually all your governmental funds. So we show fire service fund on its own, and then your other funds we kind of group into a few different categories. You won't see, there's not really a ton of fluctuation here. Pretty similar activity for your fire service, your debt service, and your special revenue. Your capital project increased a bit. Most of that's just that transfer that I had talked about from the general fund. That was about $525,000. Some of that, of course, was spent in 2024, but that's just the larger increase in cash there compared to kind of the other fluctuations. Cash for all of those funds combined was about $2.8 million at 12/31/24. All right, so we'll take a look at the city's proprietary funds. So we'll start off with the water fund. That had an increase in that position of about $185,000, and then an ending net position of about $4.6 million. You'll see there that change in accounting principal, about $24,000. That was that accounting principal that I had talked about earlier in the presentation. That's the effect on your water fund. And then, so that obviously looks a little bit different compared to the prior years. Other fluctuations to note, slight decrease in operating revenues. A couple of industries went away in the city, so Pouch Check and Genio. So that accounts for most of the decrease there. Otherwise, I think there was changes in rates as well. So I'm sure like regular customer rate dollars probably increased, but on the flip side, you had your industry charges for services decreasing there. Investment income is most of what makes up that non-operating revenues line, that $88,000. You'll see that increase quite a bit there too. And then the sewer fund, the other proprietary fund, that had a change in net position increase of about $1.7 million and ending of about $21.9 million. Just a slight increase in operating revenues. I'm sure that effect obviously with the industries going away, that had some hit there as well. The couple of things I wanted to talk about, operating expenses overall that increased quite a bit. The payments to the city of St. Cloud started in 2024, so that obviously makes a major difference there. And then non-operating revenues, that the majority of that is the end of your PSIG. That was your state grant for your wastewater project. That's most of that $1 million that's sitting there. And then non-operating expenses, not all, but a good chunk of that is the second interest payment on your wastewater debt. And then just cash for those two funds that we just talked about. So overall, water had a slight increase, and that's at about $2.9 million, and sewer had a bit of an increase there, and it's at about $3.6 million. Some of that is just timing of your contractor payments and things like that. You might have had cash at your end that didn't go out, or the draws on the loans, the timing of that as well will make a difference. And of course, there's going to be final costs coming through on the project in 2025, which then will kind of likely see that drop a bit for the sewer fund. And then just assets as a whole for the entire city. You'll see a couple fluctuations here. Current assets increased quite a bit. A lot of that's just increases in cash. Some fluctuations in receivables, but mostly cash changes. Your capital line, that's your capital asset. So your construction on the wastewater project is in there. So that's why there's quite a substantial increase there. And then a little fluctuation in your net pension asset, but kind of bouncing back to similar where it was in 2022. And then on the flip side, liabilities, overall, couple fluctuations maybe to talk about here. Current liabilities increased, increases in payables, as I kind of mentioned a little bit ago. Most of that's construction related payables at year end. And then your debt increased a bit, just additional draws on your PFA debt. That, of course, that last of that PSIG funding was spent, so now is just that debt being drawn on to continue to pay for the remainder of the project for that PFA debt. A little bit of a decrease in your net pension liability, not huge fluctuation there. And then these next couple pages just show a little bit more of your debt here. So for the governmental activities, there are 4 debt issuances. Your 2015A, which will mature in 2031. 2018A will mature in 2034. And then 2020A in 2028. And then you have a financing arrangement that will mature in 2026. So a couple of those that will be paid off in the next couple of years, but I know you're issuing more debt, so then that will change this as well in the next year. But this kind of gives you an idea of kind of the projected payments over the next 10 years, I guess it would be. And then business type activities. So this is solely your sewer revenue note for the wastewater project. The 2022A debt, that you're still making draws on that, so the projected completion date of that loan is 2050. That may spread out a little bit further to maybe 2052 by the time all the draws are done. They estimate that just based on where your draws are at as of 12/31. So we could see that change just a little bit next year once we get final draws all settled. Any questions at all?
Sarah, 2018A, what was that bond for?
That was the Dewey Street over on that end,
Okay. And
that big project.
2020 was?
We refunded on the 2020, I
Yep.
believe.
Okay.
Yes, that was refunded.
Yep, it's 2 projects. It was the Glen and Pine Street. Yeah, we refunded a couple of them together.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
2 of them.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the way I see it, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think so. And I know right now the city's undergoing a rate study for its water and sewer fund, so I think that'll be interesting to see how that comes back, as far as, how those funds are sitting and stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
that'll be important.
Exactly, and the one thing too with the sewer cash, we do have an uptick right now. It's not gonna look the same. We've kind of been spending some of that, but I think it's also important, we haven't been pumping and paying those monthly bills, cause we
Right.
were, we were paused for a bit. And then there's also some capital portions when it comes to St. Cloud that we're responsible for. We've been paying cash on some of those items too. Like the design for the collector, they had a collector sewer that they had to repair this last year. So we paid our portion of design and cash, and we've just added that to our bill. So we have a couple little projects and things that we do tap into cash rather than finance through the city of St. Cloud.
Yep.
Just kind of depending what it is. So the rate study is going to be very helpful, because we've been working through a lot of those items too on, how that's gonna move forward. And we've had so much stuff going on, now we need to kind of figure out what's our best plan ahead. But the good news is, it's looking very good.
We started those rate increases early, so we put ourselves in a position where we have options.
And that, the money that we paid, the cash came out of water sewer, or sewer funds, right?
So when we have like, St. Cloud expenses, we take that out of the sewer fund.
Yep.
The
Yep.
projects that we're doing right now, the north side, there's committed water and sewer funds for that project. So those will come out of the appropriate enterprise fund, depending on what it is.
Yep. Okay.
So the rates that we're at now, we're pretty stable with that as far as?
That's next meeting. Yep, July 8th, she's gonna come out and go over that, so we're finalizing some of those things right now. But, initially, what I can tell you is on the sewer side, it's better news. The water side, the variable is kind of that big project, that water treatment, whether we wanna do that or not. But, like I said, we're still trying to kind of flush out all those details and assumptions.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why we did it, I think it was a really good time to do it. After kind of all these projects have been moving forward, then we can kind of hopefully settle in and have a good plan for the next 10 years.
So the water treatment, are we looking at 26, 27, or are we?
I don't think so. I mean, and the reason I say that is we just had our credit call and we did great. But one of the concerns is we're a small city, we have a lot of debt. You know, and she talked about adding more debt. I don't know that it's gonna be a feasible project unless we get significant federal and state funding, grant funding particularly, so.
It looked like they passed some of the funding, but it doesn't look like an abundant amount.
No,
I
and a lot of that is like, just those, like that couple million that we qualified for the state, those state programs, which are really good programs, don't get me wrong, but, when you're looking at a 14, 15 million water treatment, 2 million doesn't get you very far.
Exactly, yes, right. Okay.
Any further comments, questions?
Then I will need a motion to accept the report.
Looking for a motion to accept 2024 audit report.
Move to accept 2024 audit report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I will say this, it's always nice to hear that our staff is, easy to work with.
Yes,
And
yes, I will say, I think I've made this comment a few times, but actually this is one of the audits that my staff actually really love working on, so. Kudos to the team here, cause that says a lot to the great work that they do, and just the availability and being responsive, I think
We
that's
think so
something,
too.
yeah, to be said.
kudos to the staff.
Yeah.
Great
Right,
job.
right.
We have a
Thank you.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
Discussion on paid family leave requirement in 2026.
Yeah, so the reason, since we were having this meeting and Monica was gonna be here and she kinda handles benefits, we just wanna get just a little bit of feedback as we move forward. We need to figure out how we are going to comply with the paid family leave, that the state of Minnesota is requiring us to, start collecting on, taxes or administering a program on the first of the year. We met with actually the benefits individual that's working for the county, was that last week?
Yeah,
It was
last week.
And we are wondering if we need to explore the option of a private administrator of this program as well. Some of the concerns we have is right now, full-time employees, volunteer firefighters, council members all need to be covered under this plan. So that puts us over the 30 employee threshold, right, 30?
30.
Yep. And if you're over the 30 employee threshold, you don't get a reduction in premium. We thought if we could get under the 30, maybe there'd be an advantage of going with the state program. But we're still kind of trying to decipher what this all means. It's a significant change for, in government, typically, we have, nice benefits when it comes to, medical, paid time off. We usually, that's part of working for usually the public sector. That's one of the advantages. So it's really going to, make us look at what our benefits are and how we're gonna navigate this require moving forward. So I just wanted to get your thoughts, if anybody had they've heard anything or ideas. I gave you that handout in your digital packet. A lot of other cities and counties are working with this one individual. We do wanna check with probably a couple others, but are you okay if we look at the private option as well as the state program? Part of what we're thinking is they may be more responsive, also helping us implement and administer the program. You know, we're a small staff, so sometimes when you have these claims, which I don't think we haven't historically had a ton of them, but I think it's very important for us to be able to have good resources available to us as well, so that we, you know, follow the law, but then also are able to provide a timely service, to our people. But any thoughts?
I'm all for looking at other avenues also.
Right,
Whatever helps staff regulate through this mess that we're in.
Well, and ESST was a pain, and that was supposed to be the easy one.
Right.
And we went back and forth on that, cause then the state changed it halfway through, and, you know, after we screamed and hollered, this doesn't work, how you have it, and then finally they made the change. I think we have some concerns with how responsive the state's gonna be, how smooth this is gonna, you know, be executed at the beginning, and I just think we wanna make sure that if we're gonna provide the service, we can provide it efficiently.
I think one of the main takeaways after meeting with that individual last week was the companies that they work with providing the same service. It's just another day in the office for the things that they're offering, where the state would be a whole new program where it might take a little bit more figuring out before they get things smoothed over, and that would in turn make it a little bit more tricky for us to navigate around that, where if there's an established company already that's doing that, it would make the pain point a little less.
May I say Office of Cannabis Management? No, I'm all for it.
And it would also give us a bigger bank of cities and counties that are in the same boat as us, that we would have people to turn to if we have questions or concerns.
And that's all, we just kinda wanted to get some feedback, you know, cause if you definitely did wanna do it, we don't wanna spend our time looking at that option, but if you're open to us looking at both alternatives, we'll come up with something and bring it back.
Yep.
It's kind of a beast right now.
Yep.
I would really hope that somebody just comes up with here's what you should do, you know, all cities this size, and I haven't seen that yet. So, okay, that's all that we had for that, nothing actionable, just wanted to get some thoughts.
Okay, any other business?
Did anybody wanna talk about blue lofts?
I did. Steph, I know you did.
Yeah, I talked to Sarah, I'm finding them to be a less favorable option for us. I feel like they're wanting a lot of things from us, like the reimbursement for the market study and the land lease like we had talked about, and then not having any tax, like revenue coming in. Yeah. I'm not a fan.
I looked at properties and I'm not a fan of the quality of the way they build their buildings. I went to 7 of the properties and they are low income, definitely. They are not what I would want to see in my town.
When you say the way they're constructed, or?
The way they're constructed.
Gary?
I just had some questions with the financial planning that they have. You know, we have to go ahead and invest this money to keep them on one. What happens if this doesn't happen? Do we lose that money?
They want us to commit to reimbursing
Yeah,
that cost, yep.
So
That's
we
what kind
make
of was a
this
red flag to
investment,
me,
we're
yeah.
at a risk.
And I'll bring this, the plan was to bring this to the July 8th, you know, for more official, and I think that having Mayor Voigt here probably too is important. But, Yeah, my understanding, they want us to sign a memo of understanding or some type of contractual arrangement to reimburse them for those costs.
That bothers me, yeah, I don't.
And I guess I look at, we already did the housing study, we already participated with the county on that, you know, study that, determined our need, and we have a lot of good information. I did resend that to them again, and I know they did request it again, you know, they did look at it, so, I'm hoping that maybe that's another option, maybe if they can make those, reports work for them.
I'm not in favor of giving or paying them for a market study that we've already done. However, in the conference call that we did have, they would work with us. Well, let's see how they wanna work with us.
Yeah, if they can come back with a better option, you know,
I think
I wouldn't throw it out.
I think we should still keep our options open to see which way they wanna go. And, until then, I'm not in favor of ditching them altogether, cause I think we're still in negotiations with them. I think we could still keep an open mind with them, but definitely not paying for something we've already done. I'm not
Okay.
in favor of that whatsoever.
Okay, that helps me, I will
Yep.
go back and
Yeah,
see if I
yeah.
can't get some more information
Yep.
before our next council meeting then.
And if it seems like they're not willing to work with us, then we have to make a decision at the next meeting, so. Then we might have to start the thing all over again, so, sorry. Any other business? If not, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, meeting adjourned. Can we call it thank you, Ashley. Can we call it a half an hour, because we started a little early? Okay.
Let's call it like 31 minutes.
Okay.